Thanks, Jordan. As many of you are aware, today's commemoration marks the launch of our campaign for British withdrawal. I'll attempt over the next few minutes to give people some sense of the political background in which we have launched that campaign and how we hope it will develop over the coming weeks, months and years. As Socialist Republicans, we hold the concept of freedom. Is that working, is it? As Socialist Republicans, we hold the concept of freedom to be a cornerstone of our political beliefs. We believe that every human being is entitled to a basic set of human rights and freedoms. The right to live free from discrimination, the right to live free from exploitation, the right to shelter, the right to practice one's religion. We believe that these rights, and many more rights, should be open to every single person on this planet, without exception. No discrimination based on gender, on religion, on sexual orientation, on nationality or ethnicity. These are fundamental beliefs for us as Socialist Republicans, that every one of us are born with an equal entitlement to those rights and to those freedoms. We also know that those equal entitlements and those individual rights are only one part of the story. The other part is that of collective rights. Now, without collective rights being realised, it will not be possible to realise the individual rights. And chief among those collective rights is the right of a people, of a nation, to determine its own future, free from foreign interference. In the Irish context, for more than 800 years, that has meant the right of the Irish people to determine their own destiny, free from British interference, invasion and occupation. And self-determination is an absolute right. We should remember that that right cannot be deconstructed by partition. That right cannot be deconstructed by occupation. That right cannot be deconstructed by puppet parliaments. And that right cannot be deconstructed by treaties or agreements or legislation. And most especially, the right of the Irish people to freedom cannot be deconstructed by British legislation. Now, while recognising that the right, the entitlement exists, we must also recognise that the occupation also exists, and that 6 counties remain under British rule. The task for us now is to develop a strategy which brings into existence the right, which brings an end to that occupation. That is the challenge for us now, is to develop that strategy. And for us in Éirígí, we think a good place to start in that is to examine the strategy that Britain has used to maintain her occupation for 800 years, and more importantly for the last 40 years. Now, Frank Kitson is a name many of you are probably familiar with. He was a British Army strategist tasked with developing a counter-insurgency strategy for Ireland in the 1970s. His strategy was summed up in 3 words: to criminalise, to ulsterise and to normalise. Now, it's arguable 35 years later that that strategy has succeeded, that Ireland has indeed been calmed and that the struggle has indeed been defeated. If we take criminalisation, there's nothing new in it. Thomas Ashe died in defence of the integrity of the struggle. He died defending the right of the Irish people to fight for their freedom. We're joined today here by Bernard Fox. He went on hunger strike in 1981, again to defend the integrity of the struggle against the charge of criminality. Now, Bernard's going to talk a bit more about that, so I will say no more. I'll move on to the other 2 parts of Kitson's strategy. The strategy of ulsterisation was developed out of a strategy that the British comrades in the United States had developed in Vietnam. See, the American public weren't too keen on all these American soldiers coming home in body bags. They were starting to get a bit uppity, starting to organise an anti-war movement. So the Americans attempted to move as many of the South Vietnamese as they could into the front line. Kitson attempted the same strategy for Ireland. It was better have the body bags going back to Ballymena than Birmingham. Better they go back to Lurgan than London. And this strategy of Ulsterisation, it could be argued, has now reached its conclusion. Less than 8 weeks ago, the British Army was able to withdraw completely from the streets in the 6 counties and end its so-called Operation Banner. Of course, those troops are ready to come out of the barracks if they're needed, but for now, the RUC are in charge. The second element of Ulsterisation was that to present the Irish struggle for freedom as nothing more than a squabble between 2 warring factions, 2 tribes of unrulable paddies, a religious conflict. This was a determined strategy. And it could be argued again that the Good Friday Agreement, the St Andrews Agreement and the Stormont institutions are all based upon that. That the conflict was not a conflict between the people of Ireland and the people of Britain, or a resistant struggle by the Irish people. No, it was a squabble between 2 communities, with Britain as the independent referee. Another element of Ulsterisation, though maybe not in Kitson's original plan, was the way in which the struggle over the last 30 to 40 years was contained. For us in Dublin, it was quite possible to go about your daily life, and the impact of the struggle in the north would have been absolutely nothing on your daily life. And this was a strategy. The London government and the Dublin government. Because they knew the power of a risen people. They had seen the people on the streets after Bloody Sunday in 1971. They had seen the people on the streets during the 81 hunger strike, the length and breadth of this country. And they realised they had to control and contain the liberation struggle, back into the 6 counties and then back into the working class communities. So if we are to set about rebuilding a struggle for national liberation on this island, let us do so in the firm understanding that if we allow it to be again confined into one corner of this country, it will ultimately be controlled and defeated. For the British strategy of Ulsterisation, we need a strategy of nationalisation. We need to nationalise our struggle and build it in every town, village and county in this country. The final element of Kitson's strategy was that of normalisation. In many ways this was the most outrageous, notably because of its success. Censorship and misinformation became the order of the day as the British government and the Dublin government set about telling their people that the most abnormal of situations was in fact absolutely normal and that they should just continue on about their daily business. So as thousands of British soldiers set about the process of suppressing Irish democracy, and as young men starved to death in prison cells, people were told, go to work, earn your money, pay your mortgage, nothing for you to see here. The strategy of normalisation continues. We believe, to be, I'm not sure what the word is, honoured with a visit to this state by the English Queen. Another example of normalisation. We are told we should welcome this inherited office holder as if she is a dignitary of a normal neighbour, of a country with which we have no gripe. We shouldn't mention the fact that she is the head of a state which continues to occupy a section of the national territory. Nor should we mention the fact that she is the head of the Imperial British Army, which not alone occupies our country, but is currently marauding its way across Iraq and Afghanistan. But this is all part of the process of normalisation. So we in Éirígí have committed to oppose that visit should it go ahead. Indeed, as recently as yesterday, we could see another element of the normalisation programme. The farce of a national rugby team without a national anthem or a national flag. These are the contradictions of those who are attempting to tell us that the abnormal is normal. And we should bear in mind, for people in power in Dublin and London to tell us to normalise our relationship with Britain can never happen while the occupation continues. To ask the Irish people to normalise their relationship with the people of England and with the British government and the British Army while the occupation continues is to ask the robbed to normalise their relationship with the robber.